I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Ladan Salihu, a former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. He's also the spokesperson, League of Northern Democrats. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Constance.
So I'll start with your initial reactions with what our first guest said.
Well, thank you so very much. First of all, I feel inwardly sad. I feel very, very angry. I am literally trying hard to contain my anger as a result of what I saw with your previous guest. He's a dignified member of the political class, an elected member of the House of Representatives, in the echelon of leadership in the House, as a chairman or deputy chairman of one of the esteemed committees on national development. And what I see in his reactions to the kind of state that Nigeria is in today, I see a very, very worrying disconnect from someone who is in authority, who is a representative of the people, who should know better the yearnings, the aspirations, the challenges of Nigerians, their innermost emotional feelings about the state of affairs of this country. And I would have expected that anybody in his class, in his own political position, will come clean on the issues dispassionately, irrespective of party affiliation. And what I saw, I'm grossly, and I feel very, very disappointed because of the disconnect. It is as if some of our representatives or politicians live en masse on the outer planet. When you look at the present state of Nigeria today, what is there to celebrate? What is there to eulogize? What is there to be happy about? Are you happy with the level of poverty that is stinging and biting Nigerians? Or are you happy with the state of affairs of leadership that is so unlistening, that is so uncaring, that is very, very unworried about the state of affairs of the country? People are out to protest. The right of assembly is given by the Constitution, as well as the right to free speech. If Nigerians are coming out to say we are giving our voice, we want our voice to be heard again, because we have had this kind of protest a couple of months ago, and we've not seen anything different. There is nothing wrong. This government, the entire structure of government, the legislature and the executive, they are products of the people. The people put them there. The people elected them. And the people have the right to make their voices heard when they feel that things are not correct. And right now in Nigeria, you have a country that is almost 82% of the country, literally, the people are living in multi-dimensional poverty. Sorry, let me just quickly land on this. You have 133 to 140 million Nigerians out of 250 living in multi-dimensional poverty. 83 million in the north, 47 million in the south. There is no one that should come before network television to celebrate these figures and say the government is doing well. The government is failing. The government has failed to live up to the expectation of Nigerians. And we should be saying it out and loud because we put them there.
Right. He talks about responsibilities across different spheres of government. You also now touched on the level of poverty, 83 million you said in the, in the north, and then in the south, 47 million. Let's hone in on the responsibilities of state, for instance. You are from the north. Are you satisfied with the level of involvement of the state governors? Because there is tremendous resources that go to the state level, especially for states who claim large populations, they get more revenue. What can be done to change what we are seeing today?
Well, first of all, you need to change the disequilibrium in the allocation of resources and in the allocation of even goods and services. Let me give you an example. If you give any federal aid, and you can Google that, if you give, let's say, 70 or 80 trucks of, say, fertilizer to Kano State with 44 local governments, you give Nasarawa State, you give Nasarawa State 89 or 90 trucks of fertilizer with 14 or thereabout local governments, and Bayelsa with even smaller. You give Kano State the same number with 44 local governments. And that is the kind of attitude that you see in the distribution of resources across the land. One would have expected that. This is not rocket science. You can look at Lagos, Kano, Enugu, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, and Ibadan, and other bigger states. And then you prioritize and prorate the distribution of resources when it comes to, say, poverty alleviation and others, interventions. Now, the states are almost emasculated by the federal government in terms of management of security, the management of the economy, and the management of nearly all aspects of social development. If you take, let's take Zamfara State, for instance, which is the epicenter of banditry in Nigeria. You have literally a state that is struggling. You have almost 200 and you have 6,900 people killed as a result of banditry, kidnapping. And you have, the bandits have also been paid over 2.8 billion in ransom. The less than 25% of the land is under cultivation. What can that state governor do? Literally nothing. He has to live on what he receives from the center. If you go to Borno, if you go to some parts of Yobe and other states like Sokoto and Katsina, the stories played out the same. Disequilibrium in not only the allocation of resources, but also disequilibrium in the way attention is being paid to the states by the center. Okay. And I think the equation has to be revisited.
Okay. This is a good segue into the topic on constitution review that is ongoing, because you have touched on the structure of the country. When you talk about the resources that are being shared, in different states, you talk about the emasculation of the states such that they do not have the power or the security to handle situations in their states, even though they are the chief security officers. That leads us to state police, because people have been saying that it's one of the ways that you can solve the security problems. A lot of the states from the north do not agree. And you can also see that based on that, Nigerians, whether it's from the north or south, do not have a common vision of what the country should be. You are from that part of the country. What does the north want?
Well, from the onset, I think the problem is systemic, is structural, and it's long drawn out. If you want to make an analysis of the situation, when you go back to our history as a nation, as we celebrate the 64th year of our independence, from day one, the founding fathers of the country were so much constrained, if you like. They were facing the challenges of just wresting power from the colonial masters to have independence. So they had so much to deal with. They couldn't sit down with the intellectuals at the time to determine what kind of society Nigeria should be, ought to have been. Are we going for a straitjacket capitalism, socialism, welfare state, and so on and so forth? that has also characterized the metamorphosis of our own constitutional culture. So it's still, it's still a process that is ongoing. Now, with the intervention of the military, there was nothing hidden about the character and composition of a military government, which we had for several decades. Straight-jacket dictatorship and regimentation. When you had, and you still have, a democracy, you would have expected that a democracy will also lay the foundation of equitable, just, free, and fair society that will guarantee development and prosperity for the citizenry. But whereas you had regimentation and dictatorship in the times of the military, in times of democracy, unfortunately, we are drifting towards anarchy. Anarchy in the way we govern, the state and the security apparatus, anarchy in the way we handle the economy, anarchy in the way we handle social life, anarchy in the way we relate with each other, anarchy in politics, anarchy in governance, anarchy everywhere. So, at this point of the 64 years of our independence, when you talk about constitutional review, my sister, very few Nigerians are worried right now about constitutional review. In fact, some people are in the belief that the constitutional review is being sneaked in because Nigerians are more concerned about the issues of hunger and starvation.
Right.
You get it? And so when you get to some of the states, you have a gridlock in the implementation of the constitutional review.
Right.
Why? Because they are so much concerned about 3 square meals in a day.
Okay. So, yes, there is economic difficulties, but we still have to do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Nigerians, especially the so-called leaders, whether it's cultural or political leaders, have refused to let go of historical grievances and grudges? Because it's part of the things that hold us down and stops us from seeing the future, and we are passing this on from generation to generation. What can we do about this, or why are we still holding on to that?
The reasons are quite many, but the ones that I can readily say is that we've had a culture, the regional governments that we've had over the years, and the agitation for the creation of states, and the preponderance of states over a period of time from 12 to 19, and today we have 36 with the FCT. Everybody is concerned about the issues of micro-nationalism. What do I have as a, we want to have a state so that there will be not necessarily based on the need for development and creating good living conditions for the people, but having a state as a status symbol for a particular section of the country. So we have the states, we have the structures, they are not functioning because like we have observed in the League of Northern Democrats, we discovered that structures with the coming of democracy have gravitated from the provision of the basic necessities of life to the individual, to they've left the space to NGOs, to other non-functional organizations, and so there is a collapse in the system where you have ministries now operating more or less like personal estates of the ministers, where the middle class is missing because they can't go there and get the contract that they used to get. The minister is probably the chairman of the board, the permanent secretary is the secretary, and all the jobs, nearly 90%, are being done by people from within. So you have that has created some level of poverty. People do not have belief in leadership. People do not have belief in government and governance. People are so worried about even those they elect. And so the story is not a good story,
Right.
it's not a good story to tell. Now, what do we do in the circumstance? Nigerians should not get tired of asking questions and demanding for answers and holding public officers accountable for everything that is out there in government and governance. And those in government should pause for a while and think about the ordinary citizen, the common man, you and me, that are legitimately, legitimate beneficiaries of the Nigerian state, and ensure that things are done for once according to the rules. Give Nigerians a breathing space. The political class should give Nigerians a breathing space.
Talk about holding leaders to account. When you look about the northern part of the country, you have vast land.
Absolutely.
Viable land, viable for agriculture. I mean, although the food we eat today, a lot of it comes from the north. But that part of the country can do much more, with what it has, and generate billions of naira to, create employment and do much more. Why do you think it is stuck? It has not been able to take advantage of that blessing that it has.
In the north, the major problem we have in the north is a vacuum in quality leadership. We have the political class and the ruling class all working for their personal gains mainly, not necessarily for collective gains. The deplorable level of education in the north, is amazing, is scandalous. The out-of-school children that we have. When people say in the north we have 12 million out-of-school children, no. In the northwest alone, if you take the correct statistics, you have that 12 million. And you have, once you have a vacuum in leadership that does not appreciate the challenges, the constraints, and the limitations, and does not do the SWOT analysis of the real precarious situation on the ground, address the issues of the socially vulnerable, address the issue of education, address the issue of unemployment, address the issue of agriculture, address the issue of breakdown in social order. Once you don't have leaders with the mindset and the patriotism and the zeal to address these issues, you will continue to have this. And that is why when we came up with the idea of the League of Northern Democrats, it's all about political recruitment. It's all about we want to occupy the political space in the north. We want to make sure that people with quality minds in quantity and in their varieties come on board to take charge of leadership, to replace what we have today as mediocre approach to leadership. And if we continue in this path that we are today, the North one day, if we don't give this rescue mission, as we preach in the League of Northern Democrats, the North is likely to become a liability to the rest of the country. The North has a preeminent position in political leadership. The North has always been the region to look up to when it comes to political leadership. We cannot at this stage allow this preeminent position to be to just go down, the drain. So we are coming up with an idea to ensure that the next batch of politicians that will take charge of our affairs, irrespective of their party affiliation, are people of quality that will address the myriad issues that are facing the North in order to have a great North and a greater Nigeria.
One last question before we go. We're almost out of time. I ask again because this is crucial. The northern and southern part of the country do not agree on what kind of nation we want. What kind of nation does the North want? Does it want to be part of Nigeria? What does it want to see for the future?
The problem is lie in historical antecedents of mutual distrust and mutual, if you like, acrimony and suspicion. And in my opinion, we look at each other, we're not frank with each other. We are deliberately lying to each other. What we say in private is what we do something different.
So how do we stop lying to each other? How do we stop lying to each other because time is up?
Yes, it's to have a governance and to have structures and to have systems and to have election and political process that are premised within the content and context of accepted, civilized, normal behavior. Once you do that, and all the regions are guilty, if we are able to trust each other as Nigerians, if we are able to accept our shortcomings and our difficulties, if you can cover my inadequacies, if I can give you a shoulder to lean on in times of need, love will be in the air. People will cohabit, right. People will coexist, people will trust each other, people will go out to work for a greater Nigeria. But right now we are operating within the circle and cycles of primordial sentiments that is so rigid, sometimes so animated, right. That is setting us apart. And so on the occasion of the 64th anniversary of our independence, we should be optimistic. We should right. look up to a greater Nigeria. We should believe that we are not made as a nation by God to collapse.
Dr. Ladan Salihu.
We will succeed.
Yeah, Dr. Ladan Salihu, thank you very much for coming on the program. You are appreciated.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Well, that's all that we have for today. Unfortunately, the High Commissioner of Botswana to Nigeria could not join us on the show. We hope to have her in subsequent editions. That's all we have for our Rise Prime Time today. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, it's goodbye and thank you for watching.